All right. Thank you for making time to talk to me. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sonah, and I'm a mother with three children. And I have my second one has a hearing loss. So he has hearing loss and other developmental delays. And I
Awesome.
work as a pre-K special day class teacher.
Awesome. For Oakland, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. I just think about when I think about who you are, I just think about how much expertise and wisdom you have because you're coming from two different sides when you think about supporting young kids. So super valuable input. And you're an alumni of our program.
Yay.
Yay. So can you tell me, Suna, how did you find yourself in early childhood special education?
Actually, it's from because of my experience with my son, who's deaf. I mean, I just didn't know anything about special ed before he was born. But after he was born, then, I'm starting to get those home visits from regional center or home visits from like OUSD, deaf teacher. Home visits. So then I was wondering like what's the world that I'm entering to, right? Because by then it didn't like I did not know anything about special ed. So my curiosity started from there, and I just wanted to learn how to support him better, and I just got into this field.
That's great. That's cool. So what were you doing before?
Before I was full-time mom, and I was just tutoring math.
Okay, there you go. I remember that, which, yeah, because I just remember when you did your creative works, you had
Yes.
passion in science and math, right?
Yeah.
And I still talk about, like, when people ask for examples of creative work, sometimes I say, and we had this one, and I talk about how you were supporting doing science in the home for kids with hearing losses
Hmm.
because of your son's strengths in that. It was
Yes.
awesome. So do you want to share a little bit about the journey of your family and your son who's deaf?
Um, Okay, that's a long story. um, so I mean, I knew that my son had a cleft lip and palate when through my second like a screening. Then and I did not know that he had a hearing loss until he was born. So then I found out at birth that he had a hearing loss. Then later we found out he had low muscle tone around like 6 months or like 3 months and 6 months. Then now going through the schools, now we figured he had like other learning disabilities, developmental delays. So there are like few little surprises that I'm going as he's growing. We're getting into, but first it was hard to admit all those little facts. But I
Mhm.
guess in a way we got used to getting those like new surprises. But I mean, that's how we figured that he had those special needs along his way.
Yeah, that's great. And how old is your son now?
He is 8.
Okay, I was gonna say he's probably quite a bit older than when you were
He's
focusing
about a
on.
size of kindergartner, but yes.
Okay, that's really good. And is his primary way of communication using American Sign Language?
Yes, that's correct.
That's awesome. So when you think about, so from the perspective first of a mom, how has it been partnering with different professionals and educators to help support your son's learning and development? What maybe first of all maybe how what's been really good, or what are some good experiences that you've had with it?
So good experience that I can think of is his infant teacher who made home visits with us since he was born. So because he was in low incidence case, the school district took over his service since birth. So then we had a teacher who is now my coworker at Oakland.
Cool.
So she's been making home visits with us, and whenever I still have questions about, his learning, then I really actually she's the person that I reach out to, and she's really, even though we're not no longer on her caseload, she's really open to giving me advices, and providing those resources. So that's been really a good experience that we had. We built that relationship, and I guess this has been like our 8th year that knowing each other, and she knows all our 3 children, and she knows everybody in the house, and pretty much their characters too. So it's a great relationship. And she, when I just was talking on the phone with her last week because that my son has now a new teacher for the school year, and I had questions about the new teacher, and asking for advice to his infant teacher,
Yeah.
um, because she is more knowledgeable in that area of specialty. So then I got some advice, and that made me feel so much better approaching a new school year.
That's so cool. That's awesome that you've just been able to maintain that relationship too. Because I think about how sometimes challenging it is when you're kind of diving into like new classrooms, or it's early intervention and then you transition to
Mm-hmm.
preschool and you're transitioning to these different grades, and you kind of then lose like supports or service providers because they're funded in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can be really challenging.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, every year, especially when your teacher's changing, or when you're in a different setting, then parents, as a parent, it is really like you're feeling like you're starting a whole new process. You have to build that relationship with the teachers and staff, supporting staff in the classroom, and this is a different age group, so you have to learn what's gonna go around with them. But having that person to go to, that was
Yeah.
really support. That was a great support that we had. We were fortunate to have her, so that we can go ask anytime whatever that we had questions with.
That's so awesome. What do you think has been what's been a challenge or some of the challenges that you have faced with trying to partner with professionals?
Um, it's unfortunately my son had pretty much like this is his 3rd year in Oakland Unified School District, and this is his 3rd teacher. So that means every year there was a change of a new teacher. So it's great in a way because he likes new changes,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like it. I wish that the teacher would stay longer, so that we can continue what he was working on with the same strategy. Because every time there's a change, it was hard for us to figure out how to support him, and it was a different method that they were using. Slightly different approaches. So that frequent changes of professionals, that was a little challenging for us. In a way of building the relationship, and also the way supporting the child.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think that's such a hard part of how our system is set up right now, that there is not a continuity often set up with how it is. And then I think about how often then a teacher is just diving in and they're kind of looking at a file, or they're really thinking about the supports, and sometimes there's not the time or the emphasis on really getting to know the whole kid and what they're really awesome at. Or
Mhm.
like when I think about your creative work, I think about how you were really you knew your son really liked science, right, in that time, and you were trying, he was getting pulled out, right, like he wasn't having as many science opportunities, and so you were trying to think about how to at home give him science opportunities. Have you felt like professionals have had the time or the space, or even like the approach of like getting to know your whole son and like what he's super awesome at and so forth?
I mean, eventually all the teachers and the specialists find out what he's into, and they really use that as a strong tool to motivate
Yeah.
him. So you can see, I mean, they're all professionals are trying to communicate with us and try to find the best ways to support him. But yeah, so I mean eventually that they figure it out, so, and that you will find out because nowadays he's really into those insects and ocean animals. So like
Cool.
in his classroom there were lots of objects with like puppets, with crab puppets, and teachers were trying to find those resources to award to give him the award after he finished his work. So eventually we do get to see it with the effort of trying to figure out how to support him better. um, but but he has some challenges with his language as well, because he's an ASA learner. his teachers are, because he's in deaf and hard of hearing classes. But sometimes it's what's challenging is because he does receive speech language services,
Mm-hmm.
but not often speech and language pathologists do or fluent in sign. So that's a little make it a little bit challenging. We're trying to work more like a language perspective to support him in that setting, not necessarily like the speech,
Mm-hmm.
but those are little challenges that he's going through. And I do know that they're there to help him. But sometimes it's I guess in a way it works. Some year it doesn't quite work the other years. So
Yeah.
there are some challenges with those areas too.
I think that just brings up a good point. I mentioned to you that probably the week I'm going to share this in the classes is when we're talking about partnering with families and kind of honoring different language uses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about your son becoming fluent in ASL, and I'm guessing that you have ran across numerous times when service providers that he is working with do not know ASL. And so
Often.
yeah, so like how do you navigate that in ensuring that your son's like voice can be heard, like as he's working with these different people? How has that worked for you guys?
Yeah, for him, so because he's using ASL, we really wanted him to be in a deaf school.
Mm-hmm.
So he was attending school for the deaf in Fremont for about a year, but due to his additional needs, with I guess eventually that was our agreement, but we had multiple discussions about his placement because the deaf school recommended due to his behaviors, they can no longer provide appropriate services for him. Then he moved back to Oakland local school district. So in that setting, not everybody signs fluently, unfortunately, but mainly his deaf and hard of hearing teacher signs. And fortunately, he does have a para who is deaf and she is fluent, and she gets she's wearing hearing aids. So she has some access and sound, and she uses sign language most of the time. And there were sometimes interpreter, like ASL interpreter, who supports the classroom. But so we're trying to what's challenging for him is when he's engaged in other services like speech language pathologist or OT, or when he's participating in general ed like PE, art, music.
Yeah.
So, and the teacher's trying to support him in a way so that he could either herself is in the classroom during that time, but teachers do get their break and they're supposed to. So then like sometimes parents go in there, or like interpreter goes in there to support them. But with the short attention and a learner who can easily identify who's fluent in sign language, who's not fluent in sign language,
Yeah.
then he's just off. I mean, I see like the support is there, but sometimes I see that because not everybody's signing at the same time, not in the same place,
Mm-hmm.
it is challenging for him to access those language.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do feel like he needs to go in more likely inclusive, like signing inclusive setting. But
Mm-hmm.
right now, he is placed in the deaf and hard of hearing class due to other needs,
Got it.
unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a lot to navigate, and I'm guessing just a very active advocacy role from you and your partner just in to ensure that the placement is what you want for your son too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you think about then your role as being an early child special educator, how do you think your experiences from your mom or as a mom have then informed how you then go forth and build partnerships with the families of the kids in your class?
Um, so I know it's challenging as a parent to support students at home learning, and especially in this distance learning period. This is like a lot of work for parents. So before the distance learning, during in-person instruction, I try to connect with parents more often. So like, because I understand it feels awkward. Your child is, at school setting, you don't really get much information about school. So like, so I try to be consistent in terms of sending out what we're working on at school, parent communication piece. And I usually take lots of pictures and then share those pictures with parents. And
Mhm.
sometimes just having that picture tells a lot more story than what I write up for what we did today. And good things or little successes that our students made today. So and so was able to feed himself a few times, by himself, or so and so gave me a picture card and asked for help, or those little, or said hooray during our song, and just sharing what their little success throughout the day. That was helpful to build that strong relationship, because I think having that relationship that your child is safe and I'm trying my best to educate your child and I'm here to help you, that was a really good message for me as a parent to have, because I felt like I need to send my child where my son is safe and
Mhm.
my son is receiving appropriate education, and also my son is with teachers who cares about him.
Sure.
So then, I mean, because I felt that way, I'm trying to build that relationship with my families, and saying this, we're trying our best to care and educate your child at school.
Yeah, that's great. Do you think that if you do you think it's helped inform your practice when you think about partnering with families that English is not their primary language, just because you kind of have this whole experience with trying to advocate for your son who's using a different language? Does it feel like that has helped inform when you're working with a family that English is not their home language?
I mean, my first language is not English either. So, and my personality is not that outgoing either. So I'm the person who usually takes, information, and I need a person to reach out to me to make that relationship. Um, but yeah, so then, as a family, like, and I see as an educator, families who speaks different language, when
Mhm.
there is an interpreter, they can tell you a lot more about the students. And especially, I feel I experienced this a lot more during this distance learning, with an interpreter present during that meeting. Then I could ask more questions to families, and they're giving me more answers clearly. And I could feel like I'm feeling like that I'm building more relationship with the family. Um, did I answer it
Yeah, you
right?
definitely did. No, I think that's
I'm
great.
Yeah.
It- yeah,
This is like I'm going somewhere, but it's okay.
you are absolutely no, you're doing awesome. I think
Okay.
the only other question I have is when you think about people who are in the program right now, training to be educators or other types of service providers, is there anything that you wish you had known when you first started, or from the perspective of a mom that you would want to emphasize as people start their career?
Mm. Well, so one thing that I remember from the program was the support for families.
Mm-hmm.
There was a mom who did say during our the support for the family visit.
Yeah.
She did say, if you don't love or don't like children or children with special need, do not work. That was one of the things that I remember. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have that passion, right? The passion, because it's really a lot of work. Like, documenting all those data and all the other paperworks beyond the IEPs and everything. But if you have your heart and passion in that field, I think that's really important that's a really important basic. I can feel it. And as a parent, um,
You can feel if people are invested in it, right? If they really care about your kid and that they really want that kid to learn. I get that. I get that just from having my kid in kindergarten. I can tell who cares about him and who is just there, like putting in their time or not invested. So I get that. I definitely get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want, and that's a good feeling when you can drop your kid off and you know that person can see my kid and knows that kid. Oh, it's going to make me cry too. Cause I definitely get that. And I don't know if I had got that more until I dropped my kid off. And cannot speak to you if my kid had more needs. We have different situations that way, but I can see that being even a stronger thing because you want your kid to be safe and to learn and to be seen. So I resonate with that, Suna.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share?
um Small, like, praise a small success rather than rather than, because it's challenging, and students with different needs, they learn on their own pace. you know um, as a teacher, or as parents, you might want to, you set their goals, right? You have your IEP goals, you have objectives that you're setting up. Sometimes they might not get there, but they will make their own success every day. So
Mhm.
celebrate what they're going for instead of pointing out what they're not making success of.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful. Thanks, Suna. I just feel like what you have to
No.
say, I feel like you have such a powerful perspective and it makes me feel so thankful that you are in the field as an educator and also just how happy I am that your son has such a strong advocate and somebody that's gonna push and I have no doubt make sure that he is in the best place for him.
Mhm. And thanks for other educators. He's been successful on his own way with great supports that he's been getting. And I have to say, everybody actually in the field who's working with students with special needs, they do have hearts. And it's just that the work that they're putting in, it's great. Sometimes it might not be the best fit for that child, but I really appreciate for the work that everybody's putting into.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's awesome. All right, I'm gonna turn off my, I'm gonna
Yes.